Why does classical conditioning work? There are two ways to explain how one stimulus comes to stand in for another. One is the original explanation given by the Pavlov, whereas the other is based on a cognitive explanation. Hello everyone and Assalamu alaikum. This is Introduction to Psychology Part 2 by Dear Knowledge. Okay, so this is the chapter 3. It's all about learning. And let me share the chapter overview with you all on the topics which we are going to cover in the chapter of learning. So here you can see on the screen right in front of you, these are all the topics which we are covering in the chapter of learning. And if I give you a quick recap on what we have learned so far, so whenever the chapter is very detailed, I divide the chapter into different lessons, so it is easy for you people to understand the topic easily. So that's why I divided all these topics into different lessons, and whenever the lesson appeared detailed, so I divided the lessons into different parts, and whenever the part is detailed, then I divide them into further different parts, because our main aim is to clear your concept, and in this way it will be easy for you people to understand the topic easily and to digest the lecture easily. So if I give you a quick recap, in lesson 1 we have learned about the definition of learning and all those terms which were used in the definition of learning. We discussed about that, and then we also learned about we also discussed a short case study with reference to learning, and taking that case study as an example, we discussed a lot about learning. So if you want to start this chapter in a proper sequence, so I would suggest first start with the definition of learning. Then after that, in the next lesson, we started with the types of learning, the lesson 2, which is about the types of learning. And in the lesson 2, I've divided the lesson 2 into different parts, part A and part B, or part 1 and part 2. So part 1 is about the classical conditioning and part 2 is about the operant conditioning. Again, the part 1 was very detailed because I am trying my level best to include all those topics, all those points on a single platform, so so you don't have to wander here and there, you don't have to search here and there, and you don't have to waste your time on searching online for different topics. So I tried my best to include all the topics on a single platform, so it's easy for you to understand and get all the topics on one platform. So that's why when I included all the important points, all the important topics, the part 1 became very detailed. So that's why I divided the part 1 into different short parts, like part 1A, part 1B, part 1C, part 1D, E, and F, like that. So we learned about classical conditioning, about who discovered classical conditioning. Obviously, it's Ivan Pavlov, who discovered classical conditioning. Then we discussed about his experiments with dogs, and stimulus discrimination, stimulus generalization, spontaneous recovery, distinction, and all those topics like conditioned taste aversion, biological preparedness. We have covered all those topics in the classical conditioning. So if you have missed any of the previous lecture, or you want to start the chapter of learning with a proper sequence, so I've given all the links in the description section. You can click on those links and watch those videos, and you can also visit the playlist section of our YouTube channel, Dear Knowledge, where you will find all the playlists, all the chapters compiled according to sequence in a proper playlist. You can also visit my website, where I have arranged all these links in a proper sequence, so it is easy for you to start every single lecture with a proper sequence. Still, if you face any problem, if you're facing any difficulty in searching for any video or any lecture, you can ask me in the comment section and I will share the link with you, and I'll be happy to help you out. So this is going to be the lesson 2, types of learning, part 1F. So in this video we will learn about stimulus substitution and cognitive perspective. What are those terms, and what link does it have with the classical conditioning? We will learn all about this in this video. So again, starting with the question, why does classical conditioning work? So Pavlov believed that the conditioned stimulus, through its association close in time with the unconditioned stimulus, came to activate the same place in the animal's brain that was originally activated by the unconditioned stimulus. So he called this process stimulus substitution. Now, if we talk about what actually is stimulus substitution, so stimulus substitution is original theory in which Pavlov stated that classical conditioning occurred because the conditioned stimulus became a substitute for the unconditioned stimulus by being paired closely together. But if a mere association in time is all that is needed, then why would conditioning fail to happen when the conditioned stimulus is presented immediately after the unconditioned stimulus? Now, to answer that, we will further discuss about Robert Rescorla in 1988. So Robert Rescorla in 1988 found it that the conditioned stimulus has to provide some kind of information about the coming of the unconditioned stimulus in order to achieve conditioning. So in other words, the conditioned stimulus must predict that the unconditioned stimulus is coming. Now, in one study, Rescorla exposed one group of rats to a tone, and just after the tone's onset, and while the tone was still able to be heard, an electric shock was administered for some of the tone presentations. So soon the rats became agitated and reacted in fear by shivering and squealing at the onset of the tone, a kind of conditioned emotional response. But with the second group of rats, Rescorla again sounded a tone but administered the electric shock only after the tone stopped. Not while the tone was being heard. That group of rats responded with fear to the stopping of the tone. So the tone for the second group of rats provided a different kind of information than the tone in the first instance. So for the first group, the tone means the shock is coming, whereas for the second group, the tone means there is no shock while the tone is on. So it was the particular expectancy created by pairing the tone or absence of the tone with the shock that determined the particular response of the rats. So because this explanation involves the mental activity of consciously expecting something to occur, it is an example of an explanation for a classical conditioning called the cognitive perspective. So what actually is cognitive perspective? It is a modern theory in which classical conditioning is seen to occur because the conditioned stimulus provides information or an expectancy about the coming of all the unconditioned stimulus. So this was all about today's video. If your concept is clear, you can like our video. If there was any point which was a bit confusing, you did not get it, you can ask us in the comment section and we will be happy to help you out. Plus, if you're new to this channel, you can subscribe to our channel, click on the bell icon so you will never ever miss any notification. You can also share the link of this video with your family members and friends because sharing is caring. Until then, Allah Hafiz.